everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics Today. Today we're joined by Shahar, who does a music project that goes by Held by Sound. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Beautiful sunny day here. It would only be better if I was
Nice.
out in the sun, but I'll do that after this.
Yeah. Open a window.
That's right. So really excited to chat. I just noticed, and I should have noticed this earlier, on your website, it says the world's first modular album. Is that right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. While thinking of how we are going to make music for psychedelic therapy, I made this album with a mate. Um, so thinking of ways of doing it, and we basically thought of doing a choose your own adventure, as adventurous as you are in the space, or yeah, how you just don't know where it's gonna go. So we thought it would be a cool way of keeping it an album, so it will still be the way we all consume music or used to consume music in an album format, but you can choose your own adventure within the album. So essentially, we had to build this web app to make it possible. So yeah, we checked it out, and no one did it before. There's I think we saw this like one rock band that talked about doing it, and then they had like three different CDs. It was like before the, I guess you could just make a web app. Um, but yeah, no one did this modular album before. So it's modular in the sense that you can choose different aspect of the journey rather than, we did use modular synthesizer for it, but that's not what that meant. Yeah,
Right. That's cool. In modular synth being like, is it those analog ones with all the cables? Is that what you mean?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think Duncan Trussell did a lot to make those famous somewhat recently. If you've seen that, he's pretty
Right.
wild with it.
Right. No, actually, I didn't see that. I think I heard him talking about him loving synthesizers. I didn't realize he's into analog. Yeah, right.
Right. I've
That's
I've
cool.
got a few synthesizers here, all digital. I'm not fancy enough for analog yet.
Nice,
Um,
nice. Yeah.
um,
I
yeah.
got my first one. That was all my friends. I got my first one after a decade of making music. I just got my first one a few months ago.
Oh,
So
incredible.
obviously you can do without them, but they're pretty great.
that's that's how the story goes. That's awesome. So I kind of want to talk about like when did this intersection of psychedelics and music first occur to you as something interesting?
I mean, I guess I'm coming more from someone who partied before he came to this, so I'm from the rave world. Yeah, yeah. So then, you go to these parties. It was, yeah, definitely smaller than the festivals that we have today, back in the day,
Yeah.
and it became interesting because you saw other people having really good experiences, and I wanted to do that as well. And lo and behold, I had really good experiences, and it changed my life. Um, so yeah, it kind of came from there, and it took me a while to come into this space and kind of get involved in, yeah, the ceremonial aspect, and I guess do deeper work. Um, yeah, it took me a while to get here, and once I got into doing some deeper work with music and psychedelics, I kind of, that's where it went. When I go to festivals, because my main music project would still be electronic music for dance floors. Um, so that's, yeah, it's kind of separate now. Now it's different. I can have a few beers, but yeah, music and psychedelics became a bit more sacred in that way after a
Mm,
few years.
that's brilliant. And were you was there one in particular experience you saw somebody else have that kind of clued you into how big it could be for you?
Um, Not really. No, I don't think there was one moment. I think it was an accumulation of I was, yeah, podcasts became a thing, like just start listening to some Alan Watts like a decade ago, and slowly I started understanding what he was talking about. Then I saw a hippie in a festival that talked to me about it. I was like, oh, I know this. How do you know this? And apparently there was this whole world. Um, so it was a slow transition. I had an experience that was I had an experience that was huge, um, that made me want to start making music. I was never a musician before that experience. I only partied, and then I had this profound experience in a festival in Brazil, and I was just like, that's what I want to do with my life. So
Mm.
that day after, it was there was like a phone booth from the festival. It was before everyone had a phone. And I called the college in Israel. I want to do this. I want to. I was very. It like really changed my life. And yeah, so it made me make music, and now I'm a person that makes music for these states. So it's yeah, it's nice.
That's great. And are you still balancing kind of psychedelic music with dance floor music? Not as if
Sure.
there's not flow over,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I mean, my main my baby project is, well, like, it was a big part of the psychedelic festival scene. I came from psytrance and a lot of the bass music festivals in the US incorporated. So it's all kind of mishmash together. When I go to these festivals, I do a workshop now in Australia. So it's all connected in a way. In the workshop, it's not. It's deep listening. I mean, people can be on whatever they want if they want to be on stuff, but it's deep listening, and it's more of a, yeah, it's a sober experience. But obviously, there's so many, there's so many correlations between it all.
right. Yeah, it's a hard thing to communicate to a more clinical world that's
Right.
expect yeah, everything needs to be white coats in a laboratory or hospital,
Right.
and it's like, well, I don't know. I had some pretty incredible experiences when I was really dirty with very few resources.
Yeah, that's one thing that it's. I don't know if it's naughty to even talk about. It's that psychedelics can be just fun. Like, it's very. The fact that they're not for everyone is huge and is very important. But there's, I mean, you guys in the US have a whole era of people just having profound fun experiences. Just the laughter that I had. That's just thanks to these things. Yeah, it that's also profound, and that's definitely how I got the deepest experiences, was with mates and music, and yeah, not in the correct set and settings. I guess it's correct for different, for yeah, the outcome is different, obviously.
Yeah, it's a
And
super different scenario. And I
yeah,
love the idea of calling it incorrect in a way,
right, yeah,
because it's
yeah.
like, oh, sorry, I didn't do it right, but I still benefited quite a bit,
What do you
you know?
know? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I mean, um I don't know if you can ever quantify the people that goes to those festivals and those events and benefit to that. If you can quantify how much fun you had, or how much it helped your yeah, the happiness it brings into your life. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
I
always
I'm
10 out of 10 for me, but
yeah,
I know we
yeah,
can't like universalize it, right?
yeah.
It's a complicated thing.
I did have bad experiences. I've done not a good amount, and or my headspace wasn't there. Yeah, and that my first bad trip, because I had several, because obviously I didn't know that I should stop at some point. My first bad trip was one of the biggest experiences of my life. I didn't realize that I had two voices in my head until
Mm,
then, which was very
mm,
trippy. Also very weird that no one told me that there was two voices in my head before, and that was horrible at the time. And now I look back, and that was the time where everything shifted for me. It opened my mind a bit, and it was, I guess, it was scary. I don't know, um, yeah, how it ended up being like that, but yeah, that bad experience ended up being the catalyst for who I am today.
could you explain what you mean by two voices in your head for those people who
Um,
might not get it yet?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was receiving, I heard myself talking, and then I could answer myself from, I guess, from a different place.
Mm,
I guess it's not even like the heart and mind. That's just the fact that there's a receiver of the thoughts, and I can receive a thought, and think what I think about it. But I noticed that I wasn't making the thought. The thought came up, and it wasn't a nice thought. So I was like, should I just like not listen to that voice? And that spiraled into, oh my god, there's someone in my head right now. Um, and now I know, now I know that those thoughts arise, and I'm receiving them on the other end when I notice that there's another end to receive them on, and that's me being aware of conscious experience, um, which is, yeah, it's a good place to be. But obviously, sometimes I'm not aware, and I am my thoughts, and I just go autopilot most days. But yeah, that was it. It definitely wasn't it at the moment. That's not what I realized. But now I get it.
Right. That's interesting. And what so here's a thought that I've had while I was deep deep in a festival, probably a few days in, and at one point I'm and this is kind of like high-end improv, like jazz and funk, things like that. And I at a certain point was thinking I was part of a like Pythagorean mystery cult almost,
Wow.
right? And like, surely not true exactly, but it's also like these like mysteries of music that sometimes take a lot of time to get to, um,
Right.
and sometimes a lot of substance to get to for some people.
Sure.
Um, yeah, it was a really interesting thing. Like, was there something particularly magical that you noticed about music in these early days? That, like, what was so like you're calling the music school in Israel? Like, what what was going on for you?
I was just hyped. That was just pure hypeness. Yeah, I mean that experience was just yeah, I don't think I can put it into words. It was just exciting for me. I mean it was a psytrance act, so I don't know how many people can find a similar way that it happened to them, but it's from my friends. There's definitely a lot of friends that it happened to them, and that specific person had a lot of tribal elements into it. So all of a sudden, this thing that I love combined with this other thing that I love, and yeah, I remember the moment. I remember the drop and the rhythm and the chants that was there and zebra noises or whatever he put on that specific sound, and that just felt so good. It combined it all. So it wasn't even, it's electronic music drop in a way. It's not this musical. It's not because the seventh got into the first and we're back where we started, or it wasn't necessarily a chord progression and something like that. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's very personal to that to that world. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of something
No, I
specific.
get it, and it makes sense to me because I've had very similar experiences, and I wonder. So I started listening to psytrance perhaps too early in my life.
Yeah, that
Um,
happens.
like I was still in high school. I was like decades away from LSD still, but I was listening to
Yeah.
Infected Mushroom and like early crazy psytrance. Go a Gill, and I'm still in high school in New Hampshire, United States, which is
Right.
not known for a psytrance scene.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then I started learning about the history of psytrance, which is
Right.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
Goa Gill, I believe recently passed, but there's this whole scene in Goa, India, that was just like incredible, and it was all around psychedelics and transformation, best I could
Right.
tell.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's still going. It's just in a lot of other places right now. But yeah, I can't imagine how profound those experiences were in those days. And to just again be with your friends, hearing music, changing your state. That's without no one knows. That's without all this information. It's just about you seeing people having fun and you wanting to be included in this ceremony activity. It's very tribal, and it is very intriguing when you're getting closer. Oh no, oh, it's scary and you don't get it, which is fair. I don't necessarily get jam bands in the US, and when I went to one show I was like, oh, that was very cool actually. It's,
Who'd you go to?
I was in Red Rocks. Um, oh, what's her name? Papadocia? Oh, they're a jam band. Am
Yeah.
I? Yeah, okay.
Ish. Yeah, they make
Cool.
some beautiful sounds. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I never went to a live concert in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's my career just went electronic, and I just continued going to those parties. I don't know why I did never really enjoyed those, and I went to Red Rocks because there was a bunch of artists before Papadocio that I wanted to see, and then I just wanted to leave, and a friend told me, "No, let's stay. They're amazing." And I was like, "Nah, I don't." And we stayed, and it was amazing. It was like, yeah, so many talents on one stage. So yeah, obviously, you can choose the people you dance and play with, but yeah, there's some other games and other musics out there that you can play with.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's cool. It was at Red Rocks for you. That's an interesting place.
That
Uh,
was very cool. Yeah, but I'm happy that I got this tick out of the box.
and for those who don't know, Red Rocks is a interesting music venue right outside Denver, built into some really incredible rock formations. It's kind of Colorado's premier-ish music venue. Um, the title's being challenged, but
Oh yeah,
oh yeah,
what's
a new
the
venue near me, Dillon Amphitheater. It's
right?
in the mountains. It gets a lot of the same talent that goes to Red Rocks, and the sun sets over the mountains, and you get to see a beautiful mountain range with the lake right there.
Oh my
It's
God,
gorgeous. Yeah,
you
challenging Red Rocks.
guys.
I
Yeah,
don't need to go to Red Rocks as often anymore, which is lovely for me.
right, right. That's nice. Yeah, I mean, you guys in the US have so many of those beautiful nature spots. It's
Mm.
yeah, just choose your place.
So, back to your music. So, you have your psychedelic music, and then your other music is more kind of party psytrance. Is that right, or is it something different at this point?
Yeah, it's a few. It's my main project is actually more bass musicy. It's fairly dark and tribal elements within it. It's very broken beaty. So it's very niche still. I do make psytrance as well. Um, but yeah, I very there's I also made some slow organic house with I don't know if you know Liquid Bloom, but it's also he
Yeah,
also makes
beautiful.
music for psychedelic therapy. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of musical projects. Yeah, because I just like a bunch of them, and I thought that making new names would be the way to go. But yeah, they're all me in a way.
Mm. um, that's great. And when did the concept of kind of more, I hate to use this term here, but like sober psychedelic experiences and music come into focus for you, as like something you might want to contribute to?
Right. Yeah, a few years back, I guess it was before COVID. I started I started get slower and liking softer and softer sounds, I guess, because my main project is very rough and dark, um, which I love. But I started loving producing softer and listening to softer sounds, and yeah, slowly fell in love with ambient music. And then I had few friends, Liquid Bloom included, that started making music for psychedelic therapy, and I was like, oh my god, you can do that, and that opened my eyes. I had no idea. I didn't even think about it. That's a thing, and that was right up my alley. So I yeah just started going into it. After a few months, we lived in Guatemala in Fungi Academy. I think you
Yeah.
would believe. So me and my wife just moved there for a bit, and being surrounded with awesome people that are on that same wavelength um, inspired it even more. And yeah, I kind of just it co-evolved with more ideas, more ideas, more ideas, and I started researching, and I just saw this research out there. So I actually I just started doing the thing and telling friends to do the thing so we can all contribute with a bunch of journeys together. I wanted to make a platform that we all put journeys out because I know a lot of people that it would resonate with. So I shared it all with them and hope to make this platform that ended up somehow getting into the point that me and a mate just made the modular album in the end. And a lot of other people made a lot of cool music as well that hopefully they will release at some point. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. Like on the way to making it happen, um, I did music cognition course in Berkeley College of Music, I think it's called, um, which was amazing. So it was music and the brain, and you learn about a lot about the music and the brain, obviously, and how to read research papers that really helped me go even deeper. Because as geeky as I was online trying to fight it all, as soon as I got into a paper and I wanted to understand, I would maybe read the abstract and maybe I would understand a bit. There's also a language barrier and some intelligence barrier that I didn't have at the time. And it really opened me up. And like I could actually go and get the full download from all these papers that are out there. And I just started geeking out on, yeah, music and psychedelics and everything that's out there. And the person that the teacher of the course was actually, what's his name, Bradley Vines. I think it's a Dr. Bradley Vines. Hopefully I'm not taking it away, but he was the chief officer of WavePath at the moment. At that time, I don't know if he's still there, but at the time he was the chief officer of science of WavePath. So I just had I'm like, this is amazing. I didn't even know at the time, and when I got there, I was like, oh my god, you're the person that I saw. So luckily enough, I was at every online class, and some people weren't there, so we just ended up having a lot of conversation about the topic, which was amazing because he's a brilliant man and very open. Um, the way you want a scientist to be, in a way, like he was. And what do you think that is? Like he asks me, to try and make me come up, and which was amazing. Like obviously
Right.
he knows better, but he was just amazing. So he really helped me kind of, yeah, put my head around the way it all works, or just thinking cool questions about it all. Yeah, I did some workshops after that. I did some workshops with WavePath, um, and yeah, some other workshops in person. But yeah, that was slowly. I got into doing that. Yeah,
That's great. So again, for those unfamiliar with music schools, Berkeley School of Music is probably regarded as the top American music school. And it's
I didn't know that.
I've taken a couple engineering courses there online
Nice,
to help with the podcast, which was great. And then one of my best friends went for production and engineering, so I got to learn a lot about music theory and,
nice.
and engineering theory, all that kind of fun stuff. It's wild. Yeah, and I'm glad that you were able to take that. That's really great.
Yeah, I cannot recommend it enough if anyone's interested in music and the brain. It was so cool. Like just the amount of processes underneath it all that you don't even think that are there because we're just experiencing sound. For some reason, sound just goes into all these drawers that makes us feel all these things, and it's so cool.
Right. I'm familiar with a field called psychoacoustics. I think that probably contributed, obviously. But from
Brilliant,
what I
yeah.
recall, it was a lot of how are we, at the time, like as far as I knew, 2.1, like stereo plus a little bass was it. And then they were engineering with like 40 speaker placements often,
Right, yeah.
which is incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how practical for real world things, but super
Yeah.
interesting.
It is. There are really incredible systems right now. And to have a spatial experience of music is a very cool to the fact that you can produce in that way now. I think John Hopkins's album is he has it in Dolby Atmos, which is the technology that does a spatial sound, which I would love to experience. That's one of those things that it's nice that there's that technology just for that album even.
uh, that's fun. And so I see on the website there's things like phases around the journey. So you've got like onset 1 and 2, peak 1 and 2, return 1, and final return. Like how did you kind of come up with that structure?
Um, when we were in the process of making the album, we did all these courses that I said. So there's all of that. There's all the information online. We read what we talked about, the Stan Groff and Helen Bonny. So they had a similar-ish stages, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think their like pick and release was like I can't remember now, but their pick and release was very at the end. It was all about the onset, like Groff's birth matrices. It seems like there's a process, and then you're in your mom's arms. So I think his stages were a bit like more longer. I think they were working more with LSD as well, which kind of makes more sense um, in that way. But we took a bit from everybody, and we talked to some psychonaut friends as well. Talked to some therapists. We just reached out to some people that are working in ketamine clinics, people that did it. We had some personal experiences. Um, yeah, we kind of put it all together to something that makes sense, which wasn't that far from what a lot of other people were doing. Um, and it's because it's in a way it's not set because the album is modular, so you can't move from one track to the other and change the emotional soundscape you're in. Um, but it is still set in the way that like there's only that turn you can take, and in 7 minutes there's that turn you can take. Um, yeah, it was still we knew that it would still be a rough estimate anyway, so you can just only try and perfect it to what our technology allowed it to be, the way we built it. um so yeah, that's we kind of just did a research, and it worked for us. Like when we wrote the album, we would go into the space, put headphones on, put eye
Yeah,
mask.
either.
Yeah. So yeah, we put eye mask on, just go in, and yeah, sometimes things were like, no, this is too long, and sometimes it was, oh, 1 more minute, just 1 more minute, just leave me in that space. And if that happened again and again, we would make the peak just 1 minute a bit longer, even though we wanted it to be 20 minutes or whatever. So that, yeah, there was a lot of, that's, I guess that's more artistic choices, but you hope that you're correct, that's as it goes with music.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, that's really great. You were able to have that kind of iterative process during the development of it. I can't wait to listen. I admit I have not yet listened, but
Right,
I
yeah.
know from
I
everything you're saying, I'm going to be fired up on not just this album, but the rest of your work too. So, really excited about that. Um, huh. And when did you first start hearing that people were using your music in sessions, in psychedelic sessions?
I mean, we sent it out. So we asked people to give us feedback. So that was the main thing. And as I have friends that would like to try stuff like this, even if they're not in the clinic world. So that was, I just put it out. When we launched it, just put it out to all our friends, and that was one of the coolest because the it is a very intimate thing. It's a very intimate place to be with the music, and when someone is just fully present with your piece when he's changing his state, especially when he's going in to do some deep work. Um, yeah, it's very intimate, it's very deep. And when it happened with friends that I didn't know would do that, I thought they're just not connected to that side. And they did it because they saw we did it and we said it was cool. Um, Obviously, we're not the only catalyst, but it was nicer because it came from friends. So they tried it and they had really cool experiences. So that was a lot. That was a big fuel to keep going. And yeah, from the clinics that we worked with and talked to, We just every once in a while would reach out if there's anything to know, because we wanted to know if we need to change something, do something better, write some notes down. We have a mate that she just started doing ketamine therapy, the East Coast somewhere. I can't remember what's the clinic, but she started teaching, and we know her from dance floor music days. She used to we used to release on the same label, um, and she helped a lot. She showed it to her students, and a lot of her students start showing it to their. So that was a big thing that happened, and we just kept getting a lot of feedback to try and perfect it. And yeah, now we have a lot of notes for the next time we're doing it. Hopefully, we're gonna do another more journeys. But yeah, for now, there's just that modular album.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love that it went right into a ketamine clinic too, and that the person was
Yeah.
literate. Literate meaning like
Mm-hmm.
understanding music and also um, probably the drugs. That's excellent. Um, so, have you had any other kind of like big attention moments in the therapy world yet? Like, did some other clinicians start to pay attention to your work there?
Um, but yeah, I don't think that a lot have happened from there. Yeah, I guess I mean, after that, I did some cool projects, which kind of happened from knowing someone that knows someone. And then I had this thing to show. So I was fortunate enough to make music for the DMT trials in the
Mm,
UK. And that came, I know I know someone that was working there, and he knew my music, and they needed help with some piece that they were needing to this new phase of the trial. And that was like we talked about it before, because I adore the fact that they're doing it with DMT. Probably my favorite thing. So I told them I would love to be a part of it if that comes to be. And one night he just told me there was a big change of plans. We're starting this thing tomorrow. We need a thing for tomorrow. Here's the brief. Let me get you what we kind of need. If you can do it, that's amazing. If not, we'll figure it out. So I just stayed up all night and I did this piece of music for them, and that was a great success. So after that, when the next phase came, um, I don't actually know how much I can speak about what they did, but it was way longer of a DMT experience. Um, yeah, so it was a longer piece, and obviously no one have done this before. It's new research, so the brief that they give you is pretty. They can only know from the work they've done with, with less time being in the DMT world. For it was, I think it was, for depression. Um, so yeah, they can only give me that amount of knowledge. They brief me to do this and this and this, and that's how we're gonna do it. And yeah, I ended up doing, a bunch of music for them, and that was remarkable. Like, I was so excited. That was very. I feel like that's something, because my deepest experiences happened with music in that space. Um, that's probably the one that's always, you're in a comfortable place. The set and settings have to be right. I wasn't partying, because it's that one that I was always going deep with. Then when I know that other people are doing it, to make music for other people in that space, that I know this space so much, like I was felt very good. Like, it felt very, like, yeah, between anxiety and excitement.
that's excellent. I know a little bit about that study. I think they may have published, but extended state DMT where I think they're infusing it via
Yeah,
intravenous
yeah.
connection, and it's pretty wild.
Which is wild. Yeah, I was shocked that that's even a thing. But knowing more, talking to the friends from there, I understand it. But I could not imagine. I didn't think that that's where we're gonna end up at some point.
Are you ready for that yourself?
I'm ready. Yeah. I signed up for healthy volunteers in Melbourne. I would love to experience that. That sounds amazing to me. Um, but yeah, also it's yeah, the fact that they also had such good results, and I know some like some stories from there was they're just so profound. You know, the things that happen to people that have never changed their states before to just go that far from awakened consciousness to that type of consciousness, or not
Right.
being there and being fully immersed in this, you know. But yeah, I also don't know if they necessarily go and seeing fractal rooms collapse on them, or they have a slow evolving um, experience that is still, you know, activated within their inner stories. And you know, maybe because they're
Right.
doing it slowly, it's not a blast of fractals. It's you're still a storyline, and obviously there's a lot of psychotherapy coming before and after, so their head must be surrounded these topics. But yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's very interesting.
So there's two ways to go. I think it's in terms of researching the DMT experience, which isn't exactly true. Like that's a really interesting way to use one drug to mimic the arc based on the concentration of DMT in your blood. And I think that's really neat. And then the other one is just let's have the full DMT experience for a really long period of time. So it could go either way, which would be interesting. I don't know if you know this. They're doing similar stuff in clinical trials now with people in comas.
Oh
Um,
no!
yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
How did they get consent for that?
it's a lovely question.
That's, that sounds like an idea that I would have, and then someone that knows what they're talking about would say like, "No, that we can't do that." Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
they
Right.
figured it out, right? Like I think what happens is legally the consent that gets passed to their guardians or family,
Sure.
and then the family can consent for them. You know,
Right.
and I'm so close to remembering the name of the company. No, I can't get it. But it's a really interesting project. Um,
What do they want to achieve?
the idea is Algernon, Algernon, Algernon
Good
Pharmaceutical.
one.
There it is. And then the idea is pulling people back from recovering them from their comas. Um,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. That's
We'll
yeah.
see.
That's a very creative way of thinking about it. I dig it. Yeah. I would give my consent. It's, would you give your consent?
Likely, likely.
Yeah.
I'm nervous, but yes, if I was in a coma, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there, one of the first papers that came out that proposed this idea was I think it was a three-way paper, maybe with two-way, Andrew Gallimore and Rick Strassman of
Amazing.
DMT fame. Do you know Gallimore's work yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whew, what a guy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's one of those people that I just agree with. I don't try to. I don't. My brain doesn't go no. But what about this? I just like okay, cool. If you say so, that sounds very good. And the British accent, I'm just like this is. It just buys me. So what is it? What does it say?
oh, it was calculating, what do they call it? The pharmacokinetic model in
Okay.
which the pumps would have to infuse DMT at which rate, at which moment in time for the experience. So how do we kind of fine tune the on and off ratio? And how
Right.
do we program the device appropriately so we can, not give too much and not give too little?
Right. So you have to maintain it.
Right. Right,
Right.
because it gets metabolized really quickly when you start introducing MAOIs. So you can introduce enough molecule to like overwhelm your body's ability to fight it.
Sure.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
and so that's interesting. And then Daniel McQueen, this guy out of Boulder, Colorado, started doing a similar. Well, he ran with the paper, and he actually ran a conference in Boulder where he kind of was experimenting with names for it. I think he was calling it like cyber DMT or something like that at that point, and he later
Fair
updated
enough.
it to DMTX, extended state DMT.
Yeah.
And we're actually hosting a program that's an intro for his DMTX program, which
Nice.
is quite interesting because it's not clinical as such. It's more us
Sure.
being curious as psychonauts about what happens.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
like, for
That's
instance, what
amazing.
would the longest amount of time be that you would want to be in there, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. As long as my wife and child are happy, I'm. I don't know. I actually know one of the people that did the DMTX. I'm spacing out of his name. Do you know the people that are doing Cyberdelics?
Yes, I forget who they are, though, offhand.
So and I'm working with them as well, actually, with music, which is amazing, and they're lovely. I don't know why I'm spacing out on his name, but he's been there. He stayed there for a while. I can't remember the amount of hours, but he was in that study. Um, and listen, he had a good experience, and he liked it. Um, yeah, I don't. Maybe from where I am, it sounds very comfortable. I also never had a bad experience in that space. I always feel very welcome in that space, and it feels warm and familiar, and I just like it. So it's
Hmm.
for me to stay for longer. It doesn't just sounds nice. Not and yeah, and nothing else. But that's yeah. I know that I'm not everyone's like that. But yeah, that's so cool. Just the fact that they, because I remember hearing a talk that they did, and how I can't remember the examples they gave, but because so and so, you can call it a dimension just by the fact that everyone's going there. I think
Hmm.
they also, because they also did a talk with Graham Hancock,
Right.
and he talks about right in Visionary. He talks about how all the alien sightings and fairy sightings, and when people did you read this one? Did you read
Yeah, that
this
was
one?
I read it and it was titled Supernatural.
Right.
But they
Yeah.
did rename it, I think. But
The
yeah, the idea is
Visionary.
that there's yeah, Visionary, you're right. The all of this cave art, ancient cave art, was inspired by
Yeah.
psychedelic states, which could or could not have been from entity encounters.
Yeah,
Um,
and just the fact that like he makes the point that they could just happen. You can just go into these states, which is kind of what sightings are, maybe. But one of the coolest things that he talks about, and I think there's something similar in the DMTX, is the fact that there's a timeline to that dimension. So I am butchering it, but from the 50s, 60s sightings, they went and there was a lot of like intercourse between aliens and humans. And from the 70s, when people had sightings and aliens would take them, they would carry for babies. So as a collective, our experience changed when there was these sightings, and that added a timeline to the experience, which that puts a dimension into whatever it is that's happening collectively. Which that's where it gets cool, because that's you can something is happening regardless of what we're thinking about it. You know what I mean?
mm, hmm.
That's I think that's where it gets interesting. Everything except that when they talk aliens and stuff, my brain is like, that's a bit too much. But the fact that there's a timeline that was added, yeah, that's opened the mystery for me.
Um, so I'm a big fan of Graham Hancock. He's been on the show.
Oh, amazing.
We had check that one out. I was as
I will.
sick as I've ever been, and recorded with Graham anyway because I thought it was so important.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I was just at a conference this past weekend that I don't know, it might have made Graham Hancock blush a little bit. You know his line, "Everything keeps getting older."
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that line, and I started hearing that based on new data from the James Webb Telescope, we're seeing farther into the universe than we ever have
Right.
with Hubble, and as a result, uh, cosmology is being rewritten because there's
Right.
more and more doubts on the Big Bang hypothesis and this idea of the universe being 13.7 billion years old. is being
Right.
challenged, and they're saying it might be 2 trillion years old,
Right.
um, which is wild. And
That's
yeah, I
right,
kept
right up his alley.
right.
Yeah.
Just way older than we could have ever calculated. Um, yeah, that's a fascinating idea. I love those kinds of conversations. This was like a hardcore space plasma physicist was giving me the
Right.
download. I'm like,
I
okay.
love when they break the things that we think about because it's so hard to change your mind anyway. Like it's so hard to change your mind on the small things. And in a way, when it's the big stuff, when it's this big concept, because I'm so detached from the Big Bang, if
Hmm.
someone's like, actually, it wasn't that, it was this other thing, I'll be like, oh, cool, nice. Can you like just tell me just so I know? I'll just update my firmware, like I'll just, now I know that that's what we're saying. Like it's so hard for me to grasp these concepts. That's, yeah, in a way, it's easier for me to change my mind there, but like it is nice to change the way we think about it. Have you seen the so we're not talking about music, but it's very I can't remember his name now. There's a book called the something against the case a case against reality. Do you know
That
this
sounds
one?
fun.
It's he basically it's almost panpsychism, but it's not panpsychism. But he basically brings the point of there's no time and space are not in the equation anymore. They're just not enough for all the problems that they see now in the universe and cosmos. And he's providing a new way of looking at it, which is consciousness is the building block for everything. I cannot say anything except that because I heard it twice and I couldn't understand. I would say I understood like 10% of it, the podcast. But it's amazing. Like that is he changes everything that everything stands on. Like it's a huge thing to say. But again, I mean, I was like, yeah, that sounds that sounds good to me. Like that's for me, consciousness can be everywhere, and that makes sense because it's such a collective experience. It's always there. I don't know for whoever meditated and when you disappeared, but something was still there. There's the fact that there's a there and that you can explain that there is with everything, which is a pretty similar experience when you feel unity with everything when you're on a psychedelic. And when you experience it, when you actually have an experience, not philosophical, you didn't read it in a podcast, when you feel one with everything, that it makes sense what he says. That's maybe it is that. Maybe that thing that connects us all is the building blocks for reality. Because for me, that makes sense on a very shallow level. Like I don't know how to explain everything that he explained, but yeah,
um, a person I know, I watched him come out of a DMT experience somewhat recently, and this is a army veteran, very straight laced, came out of the experience. You can really see how everything's so connected. First words,
yeah,
like,
amazing.
yeah. So
Yeah,
this book,
that's
this
good.
book you were talking about, Case Against Reality, 2 lines came up on Google. A professor of cognitive science argues that the world is nothing like the one we experience through our senses. I think that's quite accurate.
Yeah,
And then part two, Hoffman, his name's Donald Hoffman. Hoffman proposes a solution to the hard problem of consciousness by adopting the converse view that consciousness causes brain activity and, in fact, creates all objects and properties of the physical world. Which that's yeah, it's an interesting one, right? It's I like Alfred North Whitehead quite a bit, the British philosopher who um, created a new physics based on psychology.
right. I don't know this.
Psychology and human experience being primary, or experience being primary.
What's his name again? Sorry.
Alfred North Whitehead.
Cool.
And there's a lot there, and that's a whole field of study that's quite interdisciplinary,
Right.
transdisciplinary.
Right. It's so cool.
It's
When
fascinating.
yeah, when you make an equation that adds up, then there's nothing to say. It adds up. You got the calculation works. So it's if anything, it's just interesting.
Right. And you can just point over to it and say, look, validate my work.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing.
Right. And so I was just at this conference this past weekend, and um, there were a lot of people there, and it was about music, philosophy, art, generally, physics, religion, and like the whole gamut of human experience. And there was a lot of this there. It's like obviously the world as such is not purely what we get through our traditionally defined five senses, right? It's so much more
Right.
complex and different than that. And we kind of left that. We haven't tried to really include relativity super well, or the quantum world super well, and how we think about the world. And there's a lot there. There's the
Yeah.
left brain right brain thinking that's really important to bring into this conversation. Like, you could get really left brain and analytical about music, but then are you actually really experiencing the music, versus like trying to take the whole thing in like a deep listening session like you were talking about, um,
Yeah,
which is
fully.
actually the song.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, starting being a producer of music really ruined music for me for a while. Because every time I heard something, it's like, oh, that's a nice note. That's a cool thing he did. I would just analyze everything, which happened to me as well. One of the first times I just did a session at home. I just went deep on, yeah, changing my states and just putting music on. I put East Forest on, his music for mushrooms, which is brilliant. And I went in. It was profound. I cried for like 3 hours. It was amazing. Um, but also, my brain was so analytical. I was like, oh, that ended a bit abruptly. Oh, that guitar could have stayed for longer. Like I would just judge everything. And obviously, you can still experiences very deeply, but yeah, it's hard to shush that brain sometimes. But that's just even meditation. It's pretty similar. Like if you're focusing on feeling more, you can do it. Like your brain will definitely keep talking. But yeah, if you're focusing on feeling more, you can do it. I am now coming on the other side of it. If I close my eyes and just go into the music, substance free, and just let music be the catalyst for my emotions, which is how it is anyway, but like really focus, it's profound. It's so beautiful. When we do our workshops um, in festivals, I also did it not in festivals. When I was in Israel before we moved to Australia, we did a few workshops in this beautiful place. So you watch the Mediterranean Sea. Everyone had these mattresses and the blankets, eye shades, and we just blasted the journey from speakers. So one of the journeys from the modular album, I chose one of the journeys. I guess we should talk about the modular album, so I explained that. But one of the journeys that we wrote for an hour, and people, after I talked for like half an hour, people just lie down and experience an hour of music, sober, and it's so the how do you say, the feedback I got was just so amazing. It was so positive from 99% of people. You know, I think the 1% would be like person that was a bit too close to the speaker or something like this. So I was like, that was a lot, and I was like, yeah, sorry about that. That must have been a lot, but it was just so good. And even in festivals, people just have people cry, and you're in a festival having fun. You went to this workshop and you give yourself the present of being present with some sounds that go from here to there, and by going from here to there, you get sad when something's bittersweet. When we have a beautiful piece of bittersweet music, and you're just listening, and you're trying very carefully to listen and not let your mind wander and just feel it all, you almost don't stand a chance crying. We all have it in us, and if you like, I like crying. I'm very good at it when no one's watching as well. Like if you're just in, eye shade on. To release those emotions. Yeah, and there's not a lot of containers that feel as safe as music. Like I don't know how it is with therapy as much, but I imagine that being on a psychedelic open you up so it, potentially can be easier to release those emotions. But with music, it's not even, it's just you and the music. It's a sober experience that can expand into an emotional release like that. And that's available all the time.
Do you have any thoughts on things like Bach or Brahms or Strauss or something like that, like kind of traditional classical music and listening, like in this way and or with psychedelics?
I'm probably not the person to talk about it because it's just
Yeah.
not my forte. I listen to it every once in a while. I have like a season of life where I try, and it's mesmerizing. But for me, the psychedelic experience is more slow evolving, and for a lot of people we talked with as well, it's very slow evolving. There's some people, when we did a research for the ketamine assisted therapy, because the album is mainly for ketamine because it's 1 hour. Um, there was a few people that talked about how frames actually go pretty fast for them. So they would go from one place to the other to the this to the, like it would be a fast experience. Which, but that was a minority. The majority would think of it as a slow evolving experience. And I think classical music has too many ups and downs um, for my rate of thoughts, especially when I want to go in and work on something. It's there's a reason why that's for me. There's a reason why it took me a while to get to that thought. It took me a while to go pull on this thread that made this, that made that. I need the continuity to be there. I need no interruptions because that thread of thought is too important. Because by the time I got there, it's been, I don't know, 20 minutes. That's so many ups and downs in classical music. Obviously, I'm generalizing, but for the most part, um, it's very much like that. There's a lot of tension and build-ups that get resolved very easily when I just want to keep evolving. Which is kind of why I feel like ambient music is one of the places that at least in my head. But ambient music is kind of where it's at for me.
Hmm. No, that's beautiful, and I think there's a lot there. I'm interested in more people digging in more seriously to this question of what makes the best music for psychedelic experiences. Obviously, Mendel Kalin and the folks over at WavePaths have put a ton of time into this question. Um, but from like a generative music perspective, and like what can a therapist handle, which I think is an important use case. Um, but I also wonder about like what if somebody like yourself who's a skilled performer was like DJing for a breathwork workshop or something,
True.
or a group experience, and how might that look relative to a pre-selected audio set list, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's in a sense, that's what happened in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
There was a music, right? Like a, what do you call it? Music therapist in the room, just spinning vinyl. And he was spinning vinyl of classical music. It seems to be that classical music is where it's at for us Westerners. I guess I'm not a Westerner. Maybe I am. Is Israel in the West? I feel like Israel is like it's in the Middle East, but like
We wouldn't, yeah, like I
yeah, I
think we
guess
would
it's
call
Middle
it
East.
like to
Yeah,
like I don't know, I would call it Western, like culturally Western.
yeah, exactly, because we're very influenced by yeah.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, so it's I'm with you, and it's also so hard to generalize something like this. I remember when we talked with one therapist that told us, because we asked a lot of questions about music and how the sessions go for him and what he thinks, and he told us that one of his clients um, wanted to put Lady Gaga, that's the new album of Lady Gaga, for the whole session.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long the album of Lady Gaga is, and
Oh.
but that's he did not have a good time. Like for him, that worked. Um, and when it works, it works. You just can't. You can't. Yeah. I mean, take it closer to the psychedelic space as well. Have you heard the Iboga music, like the
I've
Bwiti
heard
tribe?
some Wheaty music, and it's
Right.
fascinating.
Right. I do not want to hear that, for example. I love it. Like I think it's beautiful, but when I'm trying to go deep. I don't want twangy strings and this off tune chants that much. Like just the fact that it's very it's so fast, it's very fast. And I love it to listen to it. That happens every once in a while that I just have a session of putting it on. But when I'm going in and trying to work on some stuff, that doesn't feel like something that accompanies me. I don't have that same resonance with it, and I think it's in WavePath's research that they found how the resonance of the person and the music, so the inner experience and the musical experience should have reson like that. That is the biggest. It has the biggest impact on the results of the session if the inner experience and the musical experience had resonance between them, which is fascinating and makes a lot of sense to me. If I'm not having a good experience, my inner experience is one place, and I'm getting too happy of a song. If I want to be sad, and the musical experience is don't worry, be happy. I'm not gonna. This is not gonna work. Obviously, it can work to some people, and maybe it will push you to somewhere and stuff like that. But yeah, resonance seems to play a huge part.
Hmm. It's interesting, and I think that tracks pretty well. Um,
Right.
hmm. So, all right, I think we're at about time, but I'm curious if you have anything else you want to maybe mention, albums coming up, or how people can get this out, modular album.
Right, yeah. Go check out heldbysound.com. It's pretty easy to navigate into the album. I guess we didn't. So, the album, I'll just very shortly. We essentially wrote an album that's mainly for ketamine assisted therapy. The full length is 1 hour. Um, and it's written as an album. So there's track one, track two, track three, track four. It builds up in a way that follows the psychedelic experience arc. And because the psychedelic experience arc is so fluid, and you sometimes want to come down, or you want to push your client, or you're doing with a friend, um, you want to change the vibe of the music. So what we did, essentially, we wrote like 3 albums of music and made them all work continuously with each other. So from track 3, that is very epic, but if in track 3, which would be 20 minutes in, you see that the person is having a very hard time and you maybe want to calm it down, you can choose a different type of track fall from what it will give you automatically. You can choose track fall that is more stillness. So we put 4 key emotional soundscapes on the tracks. It's stillness, expansive, dark, which doesn't really. That's something that I feel like it doesn't happen a lot in music for psychedelic therapy. We went there. I feel like shadow work is especially for people that doing it at home. Yeah, that's seems to be like something that work. And bittersweet. That's the 4 emotional soundscapes. So you can change the journey according to what your friend, your client, yourself is. Yeah, you will feel more resonant with. Um, yeah, so and that works either way. We have our album, the first album, the debut album, is probably is all the expensive tracks in a row, and they work continuously as one piece. You can get it in on our Bandcamp, SoundCloud, wherever. It's called Volume 1, and the modular album is called Before Thought, and over there you can get all the other emotional soundscapes. You can't hear it anywhere else. You can only hear it through the web app, through the modular album web app. So there's a bit of novelty with those tracks because you just can't hear it anywhere else. Um, at the end, at the end of the journey, at the end of the 1 hour, you get a little sum of the journey you just had. So which emotional soundscape you chose for each phase, and you can do a preset before. Like you can say, this is the arc I would want, and you can change it midway through if you feel like you're not resonating with what's happening. Um, and yeah, and it's completely free for everyone to use. Um, Nothing, no catch there. We just wanted to make a beautiful thing for the world and make it available for everyone. Um, yeah, soon I'm gonna release probably the bittersweet tracks, the bittersweet version of the album, out to the world as an album. If people would want to use it for their own sessions or something, if they don't want to walk through the web app, because you can't press forward on the web app in the modular album. It has to be a continuous journey. So yeah, that's the next thing, and some other cool projects that I'm working on. But yeah, not necessarily in this space, but still ambient and that type of stuff. And I guess just to clarify that the album, no matter which path you choose, we made it so the cross fade between the track will be seamless. So the experience is continuous. Obviously, when something goes from major to minor, you can kind of be like, ah, that's a weird note to put there. But that's I don't think people that are not like music producers or music geeks would notice that. We tried very hard for it to sound very organic and to complement the experience rather than interrupt it. And yeah, that's that. And it's completely free, hellbysound.com. Yeah, we're probably more active on Instagram than anywhere else, but yeah, that's mainly it.
Well, I super appreciate this. I'm really glad we chatted, and I'll try to include you if we do this conference. It would be lovely to have your voice
Amazing.
included. Yeah, and hope we get to link up in person eventually. I'm hoping to get to Australia in the near future. Do you tour still?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Not. I'm not going out of Australia right now. We're doing the raising a baby thing, working hard on that. Um, but yeah, maybe next year, maybe the year after, I'll come back and tour the US again, and yeah, hopefully.
Beautiful. All right, Shahar. Thank you so much. Glad we made it work, and hope we can do it again.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.